Good day, everyone. It's Vin Robinson here with another Coast to Coast Sport Moment. We're here at Heights Archery. Is that right?
That's right.
With Jason Sweet today. Jason, we are here today to talk about, once again, hunting season in particular. But before we get into hunting season, there's novice individuals like myself that want to get involved this September and get out in the bush and enjoy this hunting, what we have to offer here in our province. Before we get started, what would you suggest? Clothing is a major component to dressing. You got to dress right? I would assume that your feet, if your feet get wet, the rest of your hunting experience is not going to be good, right? So let's talk a little bit about what you would recommend when somebody comes in and says, hey, I want to start, but I don't know what to do.
Sure. When it comes to any kind of clothing system or protection system for your body there, we want to start from the inside and work our way out. So when it comes to feet, obviously socks are going to be the first thing that we'll talk about.
Right.
I've always been a big fan of, depending on the time of year and how warm or cold it is, like a heavier weight wool sock, or a lighter weight, depending on, these ones are in particular a heavy weight with an over the calf, so they're going to go quite high there.
Okay, yeah.
That wool's going to be able to keep you warm even if it gets wet, and pull that moisture away from your feet, which is definitely what you want, because if we have moisture in our feet and it gets cold, that's when we get cold feet.
Right.
And if you have cold feet, you're not going to be staying in the field very long, because everything comes from the outer extremities and works its way in. So definitely a good pair of socks to keep your feet warm and dry when you're in the field for extended periods of time is probably one of the most crucial components of any kind of a clothing or protection system for yourself out in the woods. So I would definitely like wool. Is probably my merino wool, especially, is my most favorite material that are socks that are made of. And that's definitely where you want to start. But obviously after that, we got to move to the boots.
Move to the boots, right. So let's complete the footwear here. Oh, there's a few different varieties here that we could see. Oh, what are we looking at in weight here?
Well, it all depends on what style of hunting and stuff that you're doing, right? So if it comes to a lot of stationary hunting where you're sitting for long periods of time, hunting in a tree stand or sitting in a ground blind where you're not going to be moving lots, you want a little more insulation for that. And if it's in wet conditions, certainly like a neoprene or all rubber boot like this is going to work really well. Or another rubber boot style like this. But if you're going to be doing a lot of activity, right, where your feet are going to be getting hot, you need something that's more breathable, more hiking, that's more conducive to traveling for long distances and keeping your feet comfortable. If you have short distance to travel, a boot like this is actually going to work out fairly okay, right? Because you're only walking, less than a kilometer or a mile into where you want to end up and sit. But if you're going to be spending your day, going after elk or moose where you're moving quite a bit and you want your feet to be comfortable the whole time, so getting a more of a athletic style hiking boot like this, definitely we want some waterproofing on all of our hunting boots. Gore-Tex is certainly the more popular waterproofing liner, and most higher end boot companies will use a material like that. Rubber boots are great for keeping all water out, but they don't breathe as well. So again, when that high activity is going on there, you need that you want that. It's about managing moisture in your body, right? You don't want to get your feet super sweaty and wet when you're walking, and then you get to a spot and you have to sit for a long time, and then you get cold. That's how you get cold feet a lot of the time is from the sweat cooling you off, and then that heat loss happens there. So there are many different styles here. If it was coming to elk hunting or early season deer hunting, I would definitely use a boot like that. A light hiker, it's not going to be overly cold, so I don't have to worry about.
And they are steel toe as well, right?
These ones aren't. No, these aren't steel toe boots. No, because you want that flexibility in the front of your shoe, especially when you're walking in uneven terrain. Right. And we can go to a later time of the year where I would use a boot like this when I'm sitting in the tree stand. So I'm not going very far, but you can feel how thick the insulation is inside that boot.
It's almost like a Sorel.
Yeah, it's even warmer. These are Baffins. They're rated to minus 100 degrees, so they're got a lot of guys like to use them for ice fishing. I love them for sitting in a tree stand for extended periods of time when it's minus 10, minus 15 degrees, and they give you that extra warmth because you're not moving so much. That here's the thing though, is that if you don't want to walk a long distance in a heavy boot like this because of the sweat. Right. Again, so I'll even wear lighter hikers like these ones here into the stand and pack these in with me and then put them on when I get there.
Now you just said something very interesting. When you hunt and you're in the tree.
Yeah.
So here's an individual like me thinking all hunting is belly laying on the ground or you're laying.
No, most of it's not.
Right, okay, so this is another part that I find interesting. So if we kind of just dip around the corner here, we'll look at some of the camouflaged, you know, shirts and jackets and what have you, pants. But if you're in the tree, would you want something that's a little bit more blue, or would the camouflage still work the same way?
No, you know, because animals don't see the same way you and I see,
Okay,
right? Like
right.
it's not, they see mostly, especially deer and ungulates, see in like, I think, shades of yellow, blue, and gray, right? So it's not, they don't have that vivid pop out there. Camouflage, to me, when it comes to clothing, is important, but it's probably the least important thing that I think about when it comes to clothing, because good clothing that keeps you in the field longer is what you want, right? It's got to function. The functionality of the clothing has to go first. And it's going to be the same thing as we're talking about with the boots. We want to start with a lighter weight, more moisture management system that's here to, what do I got some here?
More of a dry wick.
Yeah, so like, you know, this is
manageable,
a really lightweight, dry wick. This job is,
So this
it's
is
great for early season, like that September time that you were talking about, where it's
Right.
warm, right? You can wear that as its own standalone piece, right? It's going to pull sweat off of your body quick.
Right.
It's going to keep you cool. But even as you get on into later seasons, when you're sweating walking into a tree stand, it's still going to pull the moisture. What clothing's supposed to do, if it functions well, is keep pulling the moisture further and further away from your body and not letting that cold air come in and chill you down, right? It's supposed to manage your microclimate, as what we call it, around your body, so that you're staying comfortable the whole time that you're in the tree.
Right.
So I would always start any kind of a clothing system with a lightweight, moisture wicking base layer like this.
Okay.
Right? That's job is to pretty much purely pull sweat off of your body as you're doing activity, right, like that, so that it's not sitting against your skin and making you cold.
Now, did you suggest hoodies, toques? What's your preference?
Yeah, and we're definitely going to get to that spot, but there's
so wide-
a
so
system
much
that we
here.
have to go, right? So I would start moisture management, base layer next to skin.
Okay.
And then I would look at something in like kind of a mid insulation layer. Right, so we get something like this, and these are various types here, right, depending on the time of year and how much insulation you want on there. But their job is to trap heat against your body. So you don't walk into your tree stand normally wearing something like this. When you get there or get to your hunting spot and you're going to sit down for a while, then you put it on.
Okay.
It's like putting, you know, getting in your sleeping bag, right? It's there to hold the heat in once you get there. And so when it comes to clothing, we want base layer, moisture management control, we want insulation in the middle to keep us warm, and then we want protection from the elements, which is our outerwear layer.
Okay.
Right, so I would start with a system like that, or a heavier weight depending on the time of year and how cold it is. Like, you have to
gauge it.
You know, gauge it for that. Go to something like this, like these lightweight jackets, which I actually find that I use more than anything.
Okay.
Because they're always in my pack. I always put them on when I get there. They're just that added layer of insulation that makes me more comfortable when I'm sitting. And then we would move down to another layer, and that depends on the time of year, right? So you get something like this. This is a very lightweight, thin,
like a windbreaker
rain jacket. This is a Gore-Tex jacket, so it's 100% waterproof. Right, that's going to keep you, especially in that early September time that you're talking about there, right? You go in there with that, it gets a little cool, you put that on, starts to rain, you throw on something like that, and now you've got that 3-layer system that's protecting you completely from the elements, and you're staying in the tree stand or in the ground blind or out in the field instead of having to come in, you know, because you're uncomfortable being cold, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different varieties of those 3 layers of system that all just depends on
your personal.
Well, and what time of year it is, what you're going for, what the weather's like, right? So we want to make sure that we're making the appropriate choices when it comes with our clothing to keep us comfortable in the field, because we want to. The only way that we're going to be successful in the field is by staying out there. So if we're getting, you know,
if you're uncomfortable,
cold, sweaty, wet, everything like that, that'll pull you out really quick. So we want to make sure that we're making appropriate clothing choices, and that's all going to vary situationally.
Now, kind of touched upon it before, but head just like feet, right?
For sure.
If the head gets cold, I've got no hair on my head, so if I get cold, I'm finished. You recommend toques or?
Well, I certainly love like a small beanie like this.
Oh yeah.
Just start like just a thin layered beanie. Just keeps your head warm. You can wear it early season, late season, it doesn't matter. Sometimes I'll wear that underneath later in the year, right? Just as an extra little layer of insulation when it's cold in the morning, because a lot of times you're going out before the sun comes up in the morning. In September, it can be actually fairly cool in the mornings when you're walking out, right? So this is like just a thin moisture wicking beanie, similar to what your base layers are there. Pulls sweat off your head, keeps your head warm. That's definitely something that I would recommend for most people, and it's small, it's easy, you can put it in your pocket. It's not like it's a piece of gear you really have to worry about packing in. It's always readily accessible.
Right.
Gloves, really important too. Right. Keeping your hands is
there any grip on there?
warm. There is a little bit on the fingers, right?
Okay.
Of course, all modern gloves have touchscreen sensing pads on them there, so that you can scroll through Instagram.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay. While you're on your phone. Okay.
Absolutely.
That's cool. This is right here.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, okay, we're preparing our body. Next thing you need is a good plan, right? You want to go out, you want to go hunting, you want a good plan. Survival kits. Something could go wrong very quick. Water, food.
I mean, again, that's all situational, right? So if I'm going to my deer hunting spot, it's only a 20-minute drive from the edge of the city right there. I'm close to a lot of people. I don't need a lot of survival kits. But yeah, if you're going up, like moose hunting up north, where it's quite remote, yeah, there's a ton of preparation that needs to go involved to make sure that, if an emergency happens, you can take care of yourself there. Those kind of products are probably best found at like a Wilderness Supply or Mountain Equipment Co-op, people that specialize in a lot of backcountry stuff like that.
Okay.
You can get GPSs now that have satellite text messaging with them, right, and emergency buttons that you can hit on them if something goes wrong. But like all your basic survival stuff, right, fire starting, space blankets, any kind of medicines that you might need immediately like that, right? Ability to treat an emergency situation fast. But we're fortunate in the day and age that we live in that there are ways to contact emergency help instantaneously when you are in a very, very remote spot, which is something you always want to.
Safety's key, right? Yeah,
absolutely.
Safety's key.
And then having a plan too, right? With making sure the people who are here know where you are, right? That they know when you're supposed to be back, right? Even if you're going on a day trip for a hunt, I tell my wife, I'm going out today. If I'm not back by this time and you can't get a hold of me,
something's up.
Something's up, maybe. And these are the people that know where I'll be for sure. Contact them and they'll come see if I'm there, or you can get an emergency crews coming before something really goes wrong. So yeah, having a good communication plan and making sure that people know where you are is key.
Right. Yeah. Now this is all great stuff that we're getting here in the first part of our interview. When we come back from this commercial break, we're going to be talking a little bit about some other kits that we should think about when we're going out into the field, whether it be equipment that we're looking at, some different things. So Jason's going to show us a few different things when we come back, and we'll take a look. Speaking of a really cool bike that we saw here, so we'll be right back. We're all fully clothed now. We got a plan together. We know where we want to go and do our hunting today. But let's say that we're just sitting out there and we're not getting any activity. This might be the way to find out how to get it. So we could look at hunting deer, elk, bears,
sure, yeah,
a number of different things.
Yeah,
so why don't you show us a little bit of what's on the menu here?
Sure. So when it comes to certain times of year are more conducive to bringing animals to you instead of you sitting and waiting for them to come, right? So we have a number of calls, scents, different kinds of attractants that are there to bring animals to where you are, especially when we're sitting in a tree stand and we're spending a lot of time not going to the animals. We want to bring them in. So when it comes to like something like deer hunting, we can, at the right time of year, we can use rattling antlers, which are basically banging two antlers together, trying to make a sound of two bucks fighting, right?
Yeah.
Two male deer, and during what we call the rut in November, they're looking for territory, they're looking for mates, right? They're trying to establish that, right? So if they feel that there's other bucks encroaching on their spot, or there might be opportunities for them to breed with a doe there, they're very likely to come in and battle, right? To either say, you know, it's time to go or it's time to leave. So, and what goes along with that is different kind of scents.
Okay.
Right. So we have doe estrus and buck rut scents, and these two here in particular are trying to replicate the smell of a doe who's in heat. She's ready for breeding, right? And this is a scent that's trying to establish the fact that there's another buck there that's taking over the territory.
Give me an example of something like this. I mean, the atmosphere is so huge. We've got something like this. Where would you put this? Is it a pungent smell?
It's quite pungent. Yeah, you don't want to open that up and leave it in your car. It's not an air freshener you want to put on your mirror.
Okay.
But you know, if you were setting up if I set up in a tree stand, I'm going to put this in a couple spots around the stand, right? So that when the wind's blowing in certain directions, because as hunters, we always actually want to be mindful of which direction the wind's blowing, because that's carrying scents, and deer have an extremely good sense of smell. So we're worrying about our own smell, right? So there's actually products here that are mask your scent, right? To make it so that they have a hard time smelling you, but we can also use that to our advantage to have it so that they're smelling things that we want them to smell that might entice them to come in and check it out. So I would put those around my stand and maybe a triangle type of formation there, so that if they catch different winds, they might likely come in. Especially, we want to appease all of an animal senses, right? So if we can call, right? If we can use the calls, which will attract them to a longer distance, right? They hear it, they come in. When they get there, they're expecting to smell what they heard was calling, right? So we want to make sure that we have those scents ready for them as well. And if we can go into something even like decoys, right? Where you're having, I don't have some, where a deer decoy like this,
right? You're
putting out there.
So it's a full life size.
So now they've heard it, right? So now they've heard the deer fighting. They come in, they can smell that there's some deer smell in the area, and if they get there, now they see a deer. That's going to probably really increase our chances that they're going to come in and check it out, right? So, using all those things together can make a really big difference to your success.
Increase your chances.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, talk to me a little bit about a few areas that you think are really good for finding prey, for finding hunt, to be able to hunt. Where have you found success in the province?
Honestly, I've hunted actually quite a few different areas of the province, and all of them have good success. And it's kind of finding those smaller pieces within there, like obviously good agricultural areas, right? There's lots of food. Is a good place to find deer. If you want to just find abundance of animals, that's a good spot to do it. If you're looking for larger deer, I find more remote areas are a little better for that, because they have a lot more opportunity to get to that age, right? I've had good success on the eastern side, the west, north. I've had good success all over the place, right? For hunting deer. So it's more about finding, good food, good cover, good protection. And when I talk about good protection, that means lower pressure on them. Like if they're being hunted quite a bit, or there's lots of predators, natural predators that live around there, and they're very skittish, it's going to be a more probably difficult area to hunt them. Yes. Because they're going to be more alert. You want more relaxed deer. You can find success in a lot of spots. It's just you gotta put in the work to
figure it out, like anything else,
right? Yeah. There's no real guarantees for anything yet.
No. I would think about hunting. I hop in my vehicle, I go and I drive somewhere, I park, and then I go for a walk, and then I find this environment. But something that I noticed here that's a little cool is that you have an electric bike that's here.
Yeah, we do. Actually,
yeah. So can we talk a little bit about this?
Yeah.
Typically motorized vehicles, you'll think that they're allowed, might scare off the prey after we put all these scents out there and stuff like that. But this might do the opposite and make your experience a little bit more enjoyable, I guess.
Yeah, so in the last few years, there's been a big swing to using electric bikes for hunting.
Yes.
It's a nice way to get around. Some tougher terrain, and the biggest thing for hunting is it's really quiet. You're not running a quad or a truck into a spot there and alerting everything there. It's very silent. They move fast. They've got really good battery life. You know, you can get kits with trailers and stuff that if you need to haul in gear or haul in animals, hopefully, you have the opportunity to do so. I mean, they're gaining a ton of popularity, and I think they're going to be a big driver going forward, right? Like it's just nice, and you're seeing a lot more people use them, and they're pretty easy to operate. Let's see if I can get this one started here. They have different settings for speed. Right now it's on low, so it's not going to be too fast.
And you're comfortable on there? What's your level of comfort? You feel good?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
This is really pretty a tame speed. If we kick it up to the mid,
right,
it actually starts going quite a bit quicker.
Oh wow. Wow.
It's not bad.
That's outrageous. Yeah. This is great. So now we need another complement to make our hunting event a success, which is bows, right? So,
for sure. Yeah.
So this is all fine and dandy as a perk, but we really need to get back to basics. So let's hop over and take a look at some of the bows and see what you would recommend for starting out. All right, Jason. So like we said, we need to get educated about bows here. So you have two different styles of bows. Maybe let's start with this one that's laying down and tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, so this is just your traditional recurve style bow. This one's a takedown model, which means it comes apart in 3 pieces, and you can change the tension or weight on the bow by changing these parts here, which are the limbs. This is your very basic. Everybody probably used something like this at a camp when they were growing up as kids, and it's what most people get started in archery with. Much more difficult to be really proficient with, in terms of accuracy.
Right.
And it's something that would be harder to be good at hunting with, but people do it quite successfully who put in the time and dedication to do it.
So give me an example of why somebody would choose to purchase this bow and shoot with it. Is it just because they like the old school aspect of the sport, or is it that they would, is there a different reason that you might want to go with this bow as opposed to that one?
I think for the most part it is just more nostalgic,
right,
and wanting to use a more traditional style of primitive style. People like more challenge, right? Oftentimes people start with a compound bow to hunt with, and then as they kind of get older and they're shooting, like we go through different stages as hunters where we want to just be successful, and then we want to shoot bigger deer, and then we just enjoy the challenge, and it's about the experience as a whole and not the end result, right? So going to something like this adds that extra bit of challenge, and people like to, some people are just driven to do things hard. My wife likes to do triathlons, right? She just needs to do something hard that's making her, push herself and do something that most people don't do. So,
that's right.
And traditional bow hunting is, I think, in a big way the same kind of thing.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. So grip, let's talk a little bit about grip. That would be a pretty good component to this.
Yeah, so this middle part here is what we call the riser, or the handle, right? So this is where your hand fits underneath. That's where you would hold it.
Okay.
Most traditional bows are made of wood, but a lot of them now are actually made of aluminum, and some even really higher end ones are made of carbon fiber and stuff like that. So there is some technology advances as well in that realm.
And when you purchase the bow, the string, okay. Yeah. So there's different tightness to that string, right? Would you guys?
No, the string doesn't really dictate the tightness.
Okay.
The strings are made of different materials. What dictates how heavy it is actually these parts here, which are the limbs.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So these ones here are 45-pound rating, and that's measured at a specific length of pull.
Right.
Which is, if I pull it back to what we would call full draw for me, and you pull it back to where you're full draw for you, the weight's not going to be the same, right? Because I'm going to pull it probably to a little further distance than you are going to pull it.
Yeah.
And somebody who's taller than me is going to pull it even heavier, right? And it's going to get heavier as it goes back.
So it's not a very heavy bow at all.
No, quite light. Yeah.
Yeah, very light. Yeah. This is great. Now, how does this compare to something a little bit more modernized? I mean, this has a scope on it.
Well, this is,
sorry, no, it's not a scope. It looked like a scope.
This is like a fiber optic.
Okay.
But yeah, so this is a one of the most highest end compound bows that's on the market right now. Or so when we talked about draw length, right?
Yes.
With a bow like this, you pull it to a certain point. That could be shorter or further than you're actually supposed to pull it, right? This has got a set length of pull.
Okay.
It's got something called a let off, which is very important, right? So as you pull back, this weight just gets heavier and heavier. This one has got, when the weight goes up, it gets to a certain peak and then it drops off, and then you're holding much less weight.
I see.
So this bow here at 70-pound pull, and this one at 45, when we're pulled all the way back, we'll be holding quite a bit less weight with this one than we are on this one. And it's going to generate a lot more power because of that.
So it's like buying shoes. You got to come in,
You gotta be
talk with,
fitted
you got to be fitted,
Yes.
talk with a professional about what you feel your level of comfort is. A couple of arrows. Are the arrows different for each bow, or would you just use the same arrow for each bow?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So the arrow builds and types are the same, but the most important thing is what we call spine on an arrow, which is how flexible it is. So arrows need to have a certain amount of flexibility to shoot well and correctly out of a bow. So a bow like this needs a much weaker spine, is what we would call it, than a bow like this, which will need a much stiffer spine to get good arrow flight.
Okay.
Especially when we're putting on the hunting heads,
Yes.
because they have blades on them that grab air and steer the arrows downrange. We need to make sure that that spine on the arrow is set correctly for the bow, so we get the best flight we can out of it.
Now we saw the technician over here working on some of the bows earlier. Maintenance. People will come in and they could see you here at Heights and
Absolutely,
get
yeah.
that type of stuff taken care of. Let's talk a little bit about licensing. Would you need a license to be a hunter? Is that something that could be done here? Where do people have to go to get a license?
You need a, if you want to hunt, you do need a hunting license.
Yes.
And you need to take a hunter safety course
Okay.
to get that. We don't provide them here, but if you look at your local like in here, Manitoba Wildlife Federation. If you contact them, they'll put you in contact with an instructor or someone that can help you get that. There's also an online course that you can do if you go to, I think it's huntercourse.com, and then you select your province. You can do it all online, and then you still have to be tested by an instructor to make sure that your testing goes off well, but you can do the actual course itself online, kind of at your own pace.
So Jason has been a wealth of knowledge here for us today. There's so much to take in and so much great stuff to see around here at the shop. Jason, tell them how to find you. You got a website?
Yeah, you can find us at www.heightsoutdoors.com, on Instagram at Heights Outdoors, and Facebook at Heights Archery and Hunting Supply.
There you go. So if you want to get some of these questions answered, give Jason a call. He's a great guy. He'll make sure to get you all filled in. And Jason, thanks for taking the time today and giving us this crash course. It's really just the tip of the iceberg, like we talked about in anything. But it gave me a lot more knowledge about what you do here today. It's great. So I feel educated. Thank you very much.
Thanks.